I'm so happy to be here today to share our work and our field of practice. Thank you so much for the question, Berta. Now I will continue in Albanian, so maybe you can use your Portuguese channel to get to know more because it is easier for us to describe our work in Albania. So, okay, so the question, the first question that Berta did is about the key elements, elementet e kujdesit të ndjeshëm gjinor. Të gjitha këto përgjigje janë të përshtatura në bazë të kontekstit tonë. Në KRCT, kujdesi i ndjeshëm gjinor për gratë e mbijetuara të torturës bazohet në disa parime themelore që garantojnë siguri, dinjitet dhe rikthim të kontrollit e personi. Së pari është çështja bazuar në traumë, ku ne e kuptojmë ndikimin e thellë traumës dhe shmangim çdo formë të ritraumatizimit. Dhe shmangim çdo formë të ritraumatizimit.
Yeah. Yes. I was going to say.
Po. Po. Po, të dyjet. Okay. Okay. Okay.
So
Okay, besoj që është okay tash. Okay. Po, të dëgjoj. Okay. Sjelljet dhe reagimet emocionale nuk i interpretojmë si simptoma të izoluara, por si përgjigje mbijetesës ndaj përvojave ekstreme. Një element tjetër thelbësor është siguria fizike dhe emocionale. Një element tjetër kyç i kujdesit të ndjeshëm gjinor, siguria fizike dhe emocionale. Ne e krijojmë një ambient të besueshëm dhe të mbrojtur, duke filluar prej zyreve tona. Zyret tona janë të vendosura në një hapësirë diskrete, pikërisht për të reduktuar ndjesinë e ekspozimit, edhe për të shmangur çdo perceptim të targetimit. Domethënë, zyret tona janë të vendosura në një ndërtesë në të cilën ka edhe banorë të tjerë që në momentin që gratë mbijetuara të dhunës seksuale mundën me i frekuentu zyrat e tona, ato nuk e kanë ndjesinë e ekspozimit, sepse në të njëjtën ndërtesë ka edhe banorë të tjerë, edhe nuk ka ndonjë mundësi për me pas të paktën me provu me ullë ndjesinë e ekspozimit ndaj të tjerëve dhe me largu perceptimin e targetimit. Kjo në kontekstin ton kulturor është shumë e rëndësishme, sepse te ne ende stigma mbetet shumë e lartë. Një tjetër element i kujdesit të ndjeshëm gjinor është edhe respektimi i dinjitetit dhe autonomisë. Kjo është një shtyllë qendrore. Gruaja ka kontroll të plotë mbi procesin e saj terapeutik. Ajo përcakton ritmin, përmbajtjen dhe kohën e ndarjes së përvojës. Organizimi i sesioneve është fleksibel, nuk është domethënë gjithçka sikur çush jemi mësu një seancë tipike psikologjike me zgjat 45 minuta, me qenë shumë mirë e strukturuar, sepse jo gjithmonë tek ky target group kjo është e mundshme. Duke pas parasysh që në disa raste gratë vinë në mënyrë të fshehtë, në kushte të pasigurta, ne duhet të përshtatemi plotësisht me kohën edhe me mundësinë e tyre, duke respektu kufijtë dhe gatishmërinë emocionale. Në aspektin e konfidencialitetit, organizata mban standarde shumë strikte. Dosja se cilit individ, dosja se cilit prej grave dhe burrave që vinë brenda organizatës për me marrë shërbime, janë të koduara dhe janë të ruajtura në mënyrë shumë të sigurt. Gjithçka bëhet në print file, shumë pak prej dokumentave janë dokumentat të cilat mund të gjenden në forma online, tu pas parasysh edhe ndjeshmërinë edhe pamundësinë ndoshta për me i kontrollu qasjen në rastet më të vështira, kështu që gjithçka është e shënuar me kod, emri dhe mbiemri i të mbijetuarit merret vetëm herën e parë kur regjistrohet brenda listës së klientëve dhe prej asaj dite në të gjithë dosjet e tjera shënohet vetëm kodi i personit. Secili person, secili individ e ka kodin e vet, edhe në bazë të atij kodi ne i referohemi. Biles shumë shpesh edhe brenda organizatës kur puna kërkon që të diskutojmë edhe me jurist, edhe me profesionist të tjerë si psikiatër, mjek, përdoren kodet, mirë po, gjithashtu, nëse është e nevojshme që të bëhet qasja në informacione, bëhet vetëm me konsent të qartë të mbijetuarës, i kërkohet qasje, vetëm kur është e domosdoshme dhe gjithmonë vetëm me lejen e saj. Një tjetër element po ashtu shumë i rëndësishëm është ndjeshmëria kulturore dhe gjinore. Stigma në vendin tonë, konceptet e nderit dhe turpit, ndikojnë fuqishëm në mënyrën se si kërkohet ndihma. Në shumë raste, për shembull, gratë preferojnë terapiste gra, pasi që figura mashkullore mund të jetë triggeruese dhe të lidhet me autorët e krimit. Mirë po, kjo nuk vrehet vetëm te gratë, kjo vrehet edhe te disa burra të mbijetuar, të cilët gjithashtu mund të ndjejnë pasiguri ndaj figurave mashkullore, duke lidhur përsëri për shkak të asociimeve traumatike, duke lidhur me autorët e krimit. Këtë e kemi vrejtur jo vetëm brenda organizatës, mirë po gjithashtu edhe jashtë saj, duke pas parasysh që ndonjëherë ka rastisë që të kemi nevojë për të ndarë storjet me të tjerët, sigurisht në formë anonime me gazetare të tjerë, edhe të gjitha gratë janë ndjerë shumë më të lira kur janë intervistuar nga gazetare gra. KRCT-ja ofron qasje multidisciplinare dhe holistike, duke përfshirë psikoterapi individuale, psikoterapi grupore dhe familjare, si dhe shërbime mjekësore, psikiatrike dhe fizioterapeutike. Është domosdoshme të ndalem vetëm pak, e di se nuk kemi edhe shumë kohë, mirë po të ndalem vetëm pak te kjo pjesa e shërbimeve fizioterapeutike, sepse po besoj për shërbimet e tjera është e qartë se pse ofrohen, mirë po për shërbimet fizioterapeutike me kalimin e kohës na e kemi pa që trauma nuk është vetëm psikologjike, por shumë shpesh manifestohet edhe në trup. Prandaj, ndërhyrja trupore përmes fizioterapisë dhe qasjeve somatike është një pjesë shumë e rëndësishme e procesit tonë të rehabilitimit. Një parim themelor që udhëheq gjithë punën tonë është fraza asgjë për të mbijetuarit pa të mbijetuarit. Çdo ndërhyrje bëhet në bashkëpunim me ta dhe sipas nevojave të tyre reale. Në fund, edhe një komponent shumë i rëndësishëm është edhe fuqizimi. Kjo përfshin rikthimin e ndjenjes së kontrollit, vlerës dhe autonomisë, sepse ne e dimë që pas atyre përjetimeve, ajo se çka ndodh tek të mbijetuarit është që humbet ndjesia e kontrollit edhe humbet ndjesia e vetë vlerës edhe autonomisë. Dhe shumë gra pas procesit të stabilizimit rikthehen në arsim, hapin biznese të vogla apo angazhohen në aktivitete sociale, duke rindërtu identitetin dhe pavarësinë e tyre ekonomike dhe sociale. Për këtë arsye është mendu edhe pas të gjitha atyre elementeve të cilat u përmendën më parë, është mendu edhe ky komponent shumë i rëndësishëm që njihet si fuqizimi, po në disa raste mund të themi lirshëm fuqizimi ekonomik. Berta, për pyetjen e sfidat dhe adresimi i tyre, në organizatën tonë ne kemi pa që puna me të mbijetuarit e torturës sjell sfida të shumta, edhe komplekse në nivele individuale, institucionale, mirë po dhe në nivele shtetërore. një nga sfidat kryesore është stigma dhe heshtja e thellë shoqërore. Edhe pas më shumë se 2 dekadash, stigma mbetet e fortë dhe e lidhur me konceptet kulturore të nderit dhe turpit. Në vendin tonë, si pas një hulumtimi që është bërë me njëherë pas luftës, thuhet se janë rreth 20.000 të mbjetuar, mirë po vetëm një pjesë e vogël kanë kërkuar ndihmë formale, ndërsa shumica mbeten të padukshëm në sistem. Nëse qoftë se flasim tamam me numra, është dikon rreth 2.000, numri i rasteve të cilat kanë kërku ndihmë profesionale formale dhe janë të thotë të përfshirë në marrjen e shërbimeve brenda organizatave të ndryshme të cilat funksionojnë në Kosovë me neve si organizatë lidere. Kjo e bën që shumë gra të vinë fshehura të justifikojnë mungesat, ndonjëherë të sjellin edhe fëmijët me vete në mënyrë që të mos ekspozohen. Kjo kërkon një fleksibilitet të vazhdueshëm dhe përshtatje me realitetin e tyre jetësor. Një sfidë tjetër të cilën e kemi është edhe mungesa e besimit ndaj institucioneve. Pas luftës, shumë të mbjetuar kanë kërkuar fillimisht drejtësi, por për shkak të mungesës së ndjeshmërisë institucionale dhe humbjes së dëshmive, besimi fatkeqësisht është dëmtuar. Si rezultat, shumë prej tyre kanë gjetur mbështetje fillimisht në organizata si KRCT, të cilat janë bërë pikë referimi në procesin e rehabilitimit dhe përgatitjes për çësjet në drejtësi. Në qoftë se kemi kohë dhe pastaj ka interes, mundemi me fol pak ma tepër, ndoshta se si është rregullu edhe si është mundsu qasja në drejtësi pas thyrjes së këtij besimi që ka ndodhur fillimisht me njëherë pas luftës. Gjithashtu, një sfidë tjetër dhe adresimi një sfide tjetër është edhe kompleksiteti i traumës. Është një sfidë tjetër realisht e cila është shumë e madhe, sepse shumë të mbjetuar nuk kanë vetëm përjetimin e asaj ngjarje traumatike si ngjarje të vetme. Mirë po, ndodh që shumë prej tyre kanë edhe për shembull të vrarë, familjar të vrarë, familjar të zhdukur, dhunë aktuale në familje. Në disa raste partnerët mund të jenë të panjoftuar, edhe kjo i bën që ata të jenë edhe burim dhune duke kriju dinamika të vazhdueshme abuzive. Një sfidë tjetër, po ashtu është edhe vazhdimësia e kujdesit dhe burimet e kufizuara. Shpesh kur gjendja e të mbjetuarve përmirësohet, ato tërhiqen nga terapia për shkak të mungesës së mbështetjes familjare ose faktorëve të ndryshëm social dhe rikthehen pas shumë vitesh. Për këtë arsye, ne në KRST nuk e mbyllim asnjëherë dosjen e të mbjetuarve, duke lënë mundësi që në momentin që ata dëshirojnë të kthehen, të kenë dosjen e hapur, sepse faktikisht kjo ka qenë edhe një temë të cilin e kemi diskutuar shumë shpesh brenda profesionistëve, mirë po edhe me donatorë të ndryshëm që sa kohë duhet të qëndroj dosja e hapur, për sa kohë një individ mund të themi se mundet me i marrë këto shërbime. Mirë po praktika jonë klinike na ka treguar që për arsye të ndryshme të cilat nuk janë në dorën e individit, të mbjetuarit mund të largohen dhe të vendosen të rikthehen pastaj pas një viti, pas 2 viteve, kur kushtet e tyre ndoshta të pjeken edhe të ketë mundësi që të rivazhdohet marrja e shërbimeve. Një tjetër sfidë e cila vlen të theksohet është edhe burnout apo djegja profesionale e profesionistëve, është gjithashtu një sfidë. Puna me trauma të rënda kërkon kujdes të vazhdueshëm për stafin. Në KRCT, në vazhdimsi, vit pas viti, janë aplikuar mekanizma të rregullt të mbështetjes, duke përfshirë këto supervizimin individual, supervizimin grupor, aktivitete të ndryshme për self-care, retreat profesional për mirëqenie emocionale dhe forma të ndryshme të cilat është menduar për ruajtjen edhe mos arritjen deri te burnouti. Gjithashtu me kalimin e kohës, domethënë është parë, praktika klinike ka treguar se çka duhet të bëhet edhe gjithmonë ka shku duke u fuqizuar edhe më tepër duke parandalu mundësinë për përjetimin e burnoutit. Së fundmi, ekzistojnë edhe barierat kulturore dhe gjinore, si sfida në identifikimin e rasteve. Për këtë arsye, KRCT-ja punon shpesh në nivel komunitar, duke hyrë përmes temave shëndetësore, neutrale, si që është për shembull shëndeti i grave, kanceri i mitrës, kanceri i vezoreve, për të ndërtuar një besim dhe për të hapur gradualisht diskutimin mbi dhunën, sepse siç e thash edhe më herët, ne jemi një shoqëri e cila ende nuk flet hapur për këtë situatë, për këtë target group, andaj takimet e tona të cilat janë në komunitet janë takime tek të cilat ne nuk mund të qasemi në formë të drejt për drejt, nuk mund të tregojmë se kjo është arsyeja pse ne jemi këto dhe do të flasim pikërisht për këtë çështje me jo, mirë po, duhet të bisedojmë një herë për shëndetin në përgjithësi, ndoshta për shëndetin riprodhues, ndoshta siç e thash edhe më herët për kancerin e mitrës, kancerin e gjirit edhe gradualisht pastaj për të dalë tek tema për të cilën realisht kemi kërku ato takime në komunitet. Diçka tjetër që ka ndihmu nështë në këtë aspekt është edhe bashkëpunimi me lidert fetar dhe komunitar, për shkak se ka qenë realisht një ndihmes e rëndësishme në uljen e stigmës dhe rritjen e pranimit shoqëror. Kjo sa i përket sfidave të adresimit të tyre.
Si bien. Moi, cette vie, je suis de la COVICI. On entend par COVICI la Confédération des organisations de victimes des crises ivoiriennes. Et cette organisation a été créée très tôt après la crise post-électorale de 2010-2011. Et c'est un ensemble d'organisations qui ont décidé de se mettre ensemble pour faire entendre leur voix, c'est-à-dire défendre le droit des victimes à la justice, à la réparation. Voilà. Et nous, depuis 2022, avec le soutien de certains partenaires comme le Fonds mondial pour les survivantes, nous partageons l'objectif majeur de contribuer à la reconnaissance du droit à la réparation des victimes de torture voilà, durant les conflits qu'a connu le pays depuis 1990, 95, 2002 jusqu'à 2010. Et voilà, notre engagement envers les victimes. Et pour répondre un peu à la question, comment le centre arrive à adapter ses services de soutien médical, psychologique et social afin de répondre aux besoins spécifiques des victimes. Il faut dire que nous travaillons sur 3 leviers. Voilà, il y a d'abord le suivi individuel et collectif pour aider la victime à l'accompagner à la reconstruction émotionnelle. Le deuxième point, c'est l'intégration dans un dispositif global de prise en charge. Et le troisième volet, c'est une approche communautaire et participative. Concernant le suivi individualisé et collectif, je voudrais dire que le cœur de la COVICI, c'est-à-dire le cœur de notre organisation, c'est une approche pour un soutien psychologique structuré. Voilà, pour répondre aux séquelles connues par ces survivantes. Je voudrais rappeler que notre organisation compte au moins 100 000 victimes et parmi ces victimes, il y a au moins 5 000 victimes de violences sexuelles. Je dis au moins parce que c'est quand même souvent difficile pour ces personnes-là de dire ou bien d'affirmer leur statut. Voilà, généralement, même l'État n'a pas voulu les reconnaître en griffe officiellement. Pourquoi? Parce que lorsqu'on était en train de recenser les victimes des crises, voilà, des survivants de torture et autres, on a abordé la question de réparation, bien de victimes sexuelles sur la question de réparation médicale. C'est-à-dire que lorsqu'une victime était abusée sexuellement, a été abusée sexuellement pendant les conflits, on ne reconnaissait pas forcément que cette victime-là a été abusée sexuellement parce que, bon, il n'y a pas de preuve forcément et on les mettait dans le lot des personnes qui étaient blessées. Et vraiment, ça a été un coup dur émotionnel pour ces femmes, pour ces survivantes, et voilà, survivantes de violences sexuelles liées au conflit. Donc, qu'est-ce que nous faisons? Nous, en tant qu'organisation de victimes, c'est vrai que nous ne sommes pas forcément un centre psychologique ou médical forcément, mais nous procédons par des formations, par des référencements. Et en cela, nous formons des personnes que nous jugeons quand même aptes à pouvoir accompagner ces survivantes dans les zones, parce que nous n'opérons pas seulement à Abidjan, qui est la capitale, nous sommes dans toutes les régions de la Côte d'Ivoire. Et nous formons des personnes que nous appelons pères éducateurs. Nous formons aussi des travailleurs sociaux à l'écoute, au suivi psychosocial des victimes de violences, de torture sexuelle. Tout ça pour créer des espaces sûrs et des espaces qui n'exposent pas forcément les survivants de violences sexuelles. Et aussi, nous avons adopté depuis 2023-2024 une approche qui est appelée la ronde brésilienne, qui est quand même connue par beaucoup, qui est une technique de prise de parole en public. Et ici, avec la ronde, la particularité, c'est que elle est différente de tout ce qui est classique comme écoute psychologique, tout ce qui est classique comme accompagnement psychologique. Ici, c'est une activité qui consiste à trouver, où la personne trouve en elle la ressource pour pouvoir surmonter son préjudice. On lui laisse quand même la parole pour pouvoir s'exprimer et on ne propose pas forcément de solutions toutes prêtes pour dire, OK, vu ce que tu as traversé, il faut faire ci, il faut faire ça. On laisse la personne elle-même, à travers les expériences des unes et des autres qui ont vécu les situations similaires, de pouvoir puiser en elle des ressources pour pouvoir se relever de ces situations. Voilà. Et cette technique-là permet à ces femmes que nous suivons, je voudrais souligner qu'au départ, ce n'était pas des femmes seulement, c'était, nous, on les appelait des survivants, c'est-à-dire hommes-femmes. Mais ce qu'on a remarqué, c'est que les hommes avec lesquels nous avons vraiment commencé, qui ont été abusés sur le plan sexuel pendant les conflits, ces hommes-là ont du mal à accepter voilà, leur statut. Et généralement, quand on commence souvent une thérapie, c'est eux-mêmes qui venaient vers nous pour dire, OK, on ne veut plus faire partie de la procédure. Bon, on les comprend. Pour eux, c'est un déshonneur total. Et cette thérapie permet à ces femmes d'exprimer leurs émotions, voilà, de partager leur expérience à d'autres personnes qui ont vécu les mêmes situations qu'elles en vue de reconstruire un sentiment d'appartenance et de dignité. Parce que généralement, quand les femmes passent par ces méandres qui représentent un déshonneur en Afrique, c'est compliqué pour elles de se sentir encore propre en griffe du thème. Voilà. Et puis, cette approche que nous adoptons reconnaît que ce traumatisme n'est pas seulement individuel, mais aussi social. Voilà, comme moi, je suis par exemple survivante de torture sexuelle et je sais que j'ai une autre amie, voilà, qui en est aussi victime. Ça, 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 ça m'apaise un peu, voilà, sur le plan émotionnel, pour dire que je ne suis pas seule. Souvent même d'autres ont vécu pire que moi et que je peux quand même me relever. La deuxième chose que nous faisons, c'est de nous intégrer, nous, dans un dispositif global de prise en charge. Qu'est-ce que je veux dire? Comme je l'ai dit en entame, nous ne sommes pas forcément spécialisés en médecine, en suivi psychologique et autres, dont nous recourons forcément à des structures qui peuvent nous aider, que ce soit des structures nationales, que ce soit des structures aussi internationales. Et nous travaillons aussi au plan national avec les ministères de la Solidarité. Nous travaillons aussi avec un programme qui est dénommé Programme national de lutte contre les violences sexuelles, les violences basées sur le genre. Voilà. Et aussi, nous travaillons avec les centres sociaux dans les zones, voilà, dans les zones locales à l'extérieur d'Abidjan. Voilà, nous nous appuyons sur les travailleurs sociaux pour pouvoir accompagner ces personnes-là à l'écoute, au suivi psychosocial et psychologique. Par ailleurs, nous travaillons aussi avec des initiatives internationales, avec des partenaires, voilà, techniques et financiers qui nous soutiennent, voilà, tels que ICTJ, le Centre international pour la justice transitionnelle. Nous travaillons aussi avec le Fonds mondial pour les survivants JSF. Nous travaillons avec la TGLF aussi, ouais, bon, avec IRCT aussi. Et depuis 2022, vraiment, tous nos projets, pour la plupart du temps, mentionnent en intitulé victimes de violences sexuelles liées au conflit. Parce qu'on a vu que dans le temps, lorsqu'on on travaille simplement avec les victimes. Comme je vous l'ai dit, nous, on travaille avec toutes les victimes de tout type de préjudice. Mais depuis un certain moment, nous nous axons, comment on appelle ça? Nous nous axons officiellement sur le cas. Nous nous penchons officiellement sur le cas des victimes de violences sexuelles au conflit. Parce que nous avons remarqué que non seulement elles ont été en griffe oubliées par les structures étatiques, et dans la reconnaissance et dans la réparation. Et puis, en deuxième position, elles-mêmes, elles ont du mal à s'affirmer. Voilà, parce qu'elles se voient, elles ont peur de la stigmatisation, elles ont peur d'être rejetées par leur famille, par leur communauté. Et en dernière position, nous adoptons une approche communautaire et participative. Voilà, contrairement peut-être à d'autres méthodes qui sont cliniques, nous nous appuyons sur les suivantes. Nous travaillons avec elles. Voilà, c'est vrai que souvent, quand le cas est quand même technique, nous recourons à des services techniques, mais généralement, nous sommes permanemment en contact avec elles et nous les encourageons à la prise de parole, au partage d'expériences, à la valorisation des ressources internes. Voilà, comme je l'ai dit, parce que elles ont en elles des ressources, voilà, en vue de leur permettre d'être résilientes. Nous impliquons aussi des personnes que nous avons appelées des pères éducateurs qui ne sont pas forcément des victimes de violences sexuelles, mais qui sont des victimes qui ont essayé de se surpasser un certain moment et qui sont comme des conducteurs de ces femmes-là. Et nous aussi les engageons sur les activités économiques. Pourquoi? Parce que la guerre, nous savons ce que c'est. Voilà, ça détruit, que ce soit émotionnellement, que ce soit socialement, mais aussi économiquement. Donc, souvent, nous avons des projets, pour être des micro-projets, où nous les accompagnons dans la gestion de projets. Voilà, nous les formons et après, nous leur donnons enfin, des trucs pour pouvoir se réaliser sur le plan économique. Lorsqu'elles sont libres, elles savent que elles ont quand même la dignité. Lorsque tu vis cette situation et que économiquement, tu es aussi victime, c'est vraiment compliqué. Donc, nous leur permettons, comme on peut, à se réaliser sur le plan voilà, économique. Cela réduit carrément la stigmatisation, cela réduit le sentiment de honte. Voilà. Et cela leur permet de se rapprocher. Ça évite l'isolement, que l'on appelle l'isolement post-traumatique. Voilà, donc c'est ce que je voulais souligner. Merci bien.
Thank you so much, Edwig. Merci beaucoup. Um, I have a lot of follow-up questions actually on a couple of things that you said, but I'm going to stick to the other question that we agreed, and then we can open up some space for questions also from the audience, and reflections. Yes, so I'm going to go with the other question for you, Edwig, which is what measures does your center take to ensure this work with sexual torture survivors, particularly in contexts where stigma and gender norms may discourage disclosure? And I think you already mentioned the stigma and how heavy it is. But if you could explain us how you work around it, how you work around, the pressure that stigma has on disclosure, or basically making it difficult for survivors to disclose, to report, to explain what happened to them.
Ok, merci bien pour la question. Effectivement, la stigmatisation est un facteur réel, surtout sous nos tropiques en Afrique ici. Parce que pour nous, hein, voilà, que ce soit un viol en cas de situation normale ou un viol en cas de crise, c'est perçu par beaucoup comme un déshonneur familial, un déshonneur social. Et tout notre dispositif dans l'accompagnement de la survivante, voilà, c'est de l'accompagner sans l'exposer. C'est-à-dire redonner du pouvoir à cette survivante-là en vue de changer toutes les mentalités autour. Dans ces contextes marqués par la stigmatisation, comme je l'ai dit tantôt, les normes de genre et la peur de parler s'articulent autour de plusieurs mesures. Voilà, et les mesures que nous avons mis en place, voilà, pour lever toutes ces barrières-là, c'est d'abord, généralement, nous, on va vers la victime. Voilà, on va vers cette personne-là sans forcément faire de publicité autour. On va vers ces personnes que nous ciblons dans les communautés. Comment nous les ciblons? Nous avons des personnes qui sont nos personnes de ressources, qui sont quand même nos points focaux, qui sont dans ces zones, qui plus ou moins était présente lors d'une des crises, voilà, et qui sait plus ou moins que telle personne est victime. Mais nous ne partons pas pour lui dévoiler son statut, on l'amène à parler jusqu'à ce que, bon, elle se voit ainsi. Et là, nous décidons de l'accompagner. Voilà, et nous travaillons aussi sur le sceau de l'anonymat et de la confidentialité. Comme la précédente interlocutrice l'a dit, nous utilisons des dossiers codés. C'est-à-dire, on leur donne des codes. On leur dit, OK, tu t'appelles Bertine, ou bien tu t'appelles tel nom, mais à partir d'aujourd'hui, tu t'appelles tel. Voilà, de sorte que même quand on est en groupe avec d'autres victimes, on sait par leur code que telle personne est victime de violences sexuelles sans forcément que les autres, les autres personnes qui ont été victimes de plusieurs préjudices ne savent voilà, ce qu'il en est. Et nous tenons vraiment nos personnels, c'est-à-dire les personnes qui travaillent comme bénévoles, comme travailleurs au sein de la COVICI, au sein du centre, nous les tenons à l'engagement sur l'honneur, voilà, et au consentement éclairé. Voilà, chaque fois qu'une survivante de torture sexuelle arrive dans notre centre, ou chaque fois qu'il y a euh, une mesure d'accompagnement, etc., que ce soit par la psychologue, on travaille avec le psychologue, que je souligne ça au passage. Voilà, nous faisons signer des décharges, voilà, d'engagement sur l'honneur, de consentement éclairé, de sorte que la victime se sente à l'aise, voilà, se sente à l'aise de s'exprimer et de sorte que les personnes qui l'écoutent, les personnes qui la suivent ne puissent pas forcément trahir, voilà, ce secret que nous tenons pour confidentiel. Et comme j'ai dit, voilà, nous travaillons aussi avec les agents communautaires, voilà, qui les repèrent. Donc, la victime n'a pas forcément à faire le premier pas vers nous. Quand nous savons ce qu'elle a traversé, quand nous savons que cette situation pourrait la rabaisser, voilà, ces agents communautaires dans les localités ou dans les quartiers, souvent c'est dans les sous-quartiers, voilà, essaient de faire le travail de base avant que nous allions vers ces personnes-là, prendre leurs besoins et les référencer vers les structures adéquates. Voilà. Et en cela, comme je l'ai dit, nous nous déplaçons souvent dans des zones même rurales, voilà, reculées de nos zones d'habitation, souvent, voilà, sans forcément avoir une sécurité fiable. Nous partons vers ces personnes-là en vue de les sensibiliser, en vue de leur dire qu'elles ne sont pas seules pour pouvoir reprendre goût à la vie. Et nous utilisons aussi le camouflage quand c'est une activité où presque il y a des autorités, il y a des victimes de toutes sortes de préjudices, soit les blessés, des personnes qui ont perdu leurs parents. Nous, voilà, nous faisons le camouflage pour ne pas qu'on puisse forcément savoir que l'activité est ancrée. De sorte que quand on est, même si euh, l'activité est intitulée soutien aux victimes de violences sexuelles, vous ne saurez pas dans la salle qui est victime de violences sexuelles ou pas. Parce que par ce système de camouflage-là, voilà, on arrive à les protéger. Et puis, il y a une autre approche que nous appelons approche non jugeante. Voilà, comme je l'ai dit tantôt, nous formons le personnel voilà, ce qui c'est que la stigmatisation. Merci Bertha pour le partage. Voilà, ça va nous aider parce que nous savons que la stigmatisation amplifie ce préjudice qu'elles ont vécu. Voilà. Maintenant, il y a aussi le soutien psychotraumatique. Comme je l'ai dit, nous recourons à un psychologue,
Lillillä,
voilà,
du
ou
tell me
à des groupes de
Magnus?
parole.
Hi, there was one. This one.
OK,
Sorry, you can go ahead.
non, il n'y a pas de souci. Nous recourons à des groupes de parole, nous recourons à une psychologue que nous avons au sein de notre centre, mais qui n'est pas permanente. Voilà, quand nous avons des cas, nous les lui référons et puis c'est à elle de choisir les sciences voilà, que dont les suivantes ont besoin. Ensuite de ça, nous sensibilisons aussi fortement les leaders. Voilà, forment les chefs de famille, souvent les chefs religieux, les associations. Et dans notre but, c'est quoi? C'est de dire que la honte et le rejet doivent changer de camp. Parce que c'est pas, on montre par là que c'est l'agresseur, celui qui a agressé, même si on ne le connaît pas forcément, c'est lui qui est coupable. Ce n'est pas tant la victime, ce n'est pas tant la survivante de torture sexuelle qui est coupable au point de la rejeter, au point de la stigmatiser, etc., etc. Et aussi, comme je l'ai dit, je le mentionne toujours, il y a aussi l'autonomisation économique. Voilà, pour nous, ça, une femme qui se lève le matin et qui va au travail, qui va à ses activités, elle n'aura pas forcément le temps de faire cas de tous ces cas de stigmatisation, des cas de rejet. Parce que quand tu es occupé à autre chose, c'est clair que, voilà, les choses, voilà, tu es occupé à d'autres choses, tu ne vas pas t'occuper des choses que je jugerais peut-être élémentaires. Parce que depuis 20 ans, depuis 15 ans, elle porte ses séquelles. Et pour nous, il était temps vraiment qu'elle aille de l'avant. Voilà. Il y a une autre structure, il y a une autre attitude on veut bien mettre en place, mais on n'a pas encore commencé. C'est d'impliquer les hommes, les maris, etc. Parce qu'il y a des femmes qui sont survivantes de torture sexuelle dont les maris ne savent pas. Voilà, ça, souvent, c'est leur décision et on ne leur en veut pas. Il y a d'autres femmes aussi dont les maris les maris ont laissé, que les maris ont laissé avec les enfants à charge. Donc, nous, on entend chercher des stratégies pour pouvoir aller vers ces personnes aussi qui sont souvent connues dans la communauté pour leur dire, comme je l'ai dit en entame, la honte et le déshonneur, c'est pas au compte de la survivante de violences sexuelles, c'est au compte de l'agresseur. Voilà. Donc, et comme je l'ai dit, les services que nous proposons, pour me résumer, c'est la confidentialité renforcée pour éviter la stigmatisation. Voilà, on fait tout pour ne pas que même deux victimes hein, de toutes sortes de préjudices peuvent être ensemble sans forcément qu'on sache que telle est victime de violence sexuelle ou telle autre est victime enfin, d'un autre préjudice. Voilà, nous faisons tout pour que la confidentialité soit respectée. Il y a aussi l'espace sécurisé. Généralement, quand il y a ces genres de cas, comme en Afrique, c'est difficile pour les femmes de s'approcher des hommes de nos centres. Donc, généralement, quand ces femmes-là viennent, c'est vers les femmes qu'elles recourent directement. Donc, on fait en sorte que ce jour-là, les hommes soit ne soient pas là. En tout cas, on a notre mécanisme. Ce jour-là, il n'y a pas de travail pour les hommes. Voilà, on crée des situations par moment ou bien même quand une arrive sans nous prévenir qu'on doit l'écouter, voilà, on fait sortir l'homme pour que la femme se sente à l'aise de s'exprimer par rapport à nous. Voilà, donc c'est ce que je voulais dire au niveau de la stigmatisation. Merci.
Thank you everybody for having us. It's this evening for us, but this morning for you. So in Wagga Wagga, which is a regional settlement city in New South Wales, where Jeanette and I live and work, one of our largest refugee communities is the Yazidi community, who came to Australia through humanitarian pathways after surviving the 2014 genocide committed by Islamic State in their homelands in the Sinjar district in Iraq. At Starts, we run support programs for the wider Yazidi and other refugee communities, but the focus of my answer today is on a peer support program we established specifically for female survivors. These women and their children were kidnapped and sold into sexual and domestic slavery in Iraq and Syria, in many cases enduring captivity for up to 6 years. We currently have 21 women in the group and 43 children, many of whom were enslaved alongside their mothers or born in captivity. One of the most important things we've learned through this work is that a strength-based approach is not about minimising trauma or overlooking suffering. These women have endured unimaginable violence, loss and dislocation and continue to live with profound grief, chronic health impacts, family separation and complex settlement challenges. A strength-based model only has integrity if it fully acknowledges those realities. What it changes is not whether we recognise trauma, but where we place our focus. Too often, systems unintentionally define survivors primarily through vulnerability and need. Women can become seen only as victims or service recipients. While support and protection are essential, this framing can sometimes overlook the extraordinary capacities of survivors that survivors already hold, such as endurance, leadership, care for others, cultural knowledge, insight, humour, spirituality, determination, and the ability to heal even after immense harm. What has emerged very clearly in our work is that healing is not only about access to services, it's also about connection, belonging, trust, and collective recovery. Although these women lived in the same community, many were navigating recovery in relative isolation. This became the foundation of our peer-led support group. We adopted the relational remedy framework, which was developed by Survivor Connections, which is an Australian survivor-led organisation supporting people who've experienced modern slavery, human trafficking, forced marriage, and related exploitation. The framework, developed for the Australian anti-slavery sector, acknowledges the capacity of survivors to stand in solidarity with one another and move beyond traditional service recipient models. Peer support leaders use their lived experience to offer empathy and practical expertise, helping survivors navigate complex systems while rebuilding trust. The model recognises that survivors themselves hold knowledge and strengths that are central to healing. Rather than positioning workers as experts fixing people, the role of services becomes creating safety, walking alongside participants, and supporting spaces where women can reconnect with one another and reclaim agency. Practically, our program includes weekly gatherings, family camps, gentle exercise, mindfulness, creative workshops, shared meals, outings, and simply time together. We also provide individual trauma counselling alongside the group program to support women with the complex and ongoing impacts of their experiences. And Jeanette's going to speak some more about that shortly. On the surface, some of these activities may appear ordinary, but for the women whose trust, autonomy, and sense of safety was systematically destroyed, rebuilding social connection is deeply significant. Supporting women in seeking justice has also recently emerged as a powerful healing and empowerment tool. Earlier this year, I supported 2 group members to travel to Paris to give testimony in the Paris Court of Appeal in the trial of an ISIS jihadist who was one of the perpetrators of their captivity. We are also supporting women involved in seeking justice processes here in Australia. For many survivors, these processes are not only about accountability, they are also about reclaiming voice, agency, dignity, and recognition after years of dehumanisation. What has been most powerful overall is not what professionals have done for the group, but about what the women have done for one another. We have seen peer leadership emerge naturally, women supporting newly arrived members of the group, organising activities themselves, and advocating publicly. Over time, women begin to see themselves not only as survivors of atrocity, but as contributors, leaders, and agents of change. Importantly, a strength-based approach does not remove the responsibility to advocate around systemic barriers. Survivors still face major obstacles, including limited access to specialist service in regional areas like ours, and complicated family reunion pathways, housing stress, and long-term recovery needs. So the challenge for services is holding both truths at the same time, recognising profound trauma and ongoing injustice, while also refusing to reduce people to those experiences alone. For me, our task is ultimately about creating spaces and opportunities where strengths can re-emerge and where healing can occur not only individually but collectively. My own practice has also changed through this work. I realised that to work in a genuinely strength-based way, I had to relinquish some control and let go of the belief that I needed to solve every problem myself or always be the person with the answers. Paradoxically, when I stepped back from that expert role, the program became more effective. The women's own strengths, leadership, and solutions had more space to emerge, and my relationships with the women became more authentic. grounded in trust, mutual respect, and shared humanity rather than a professional hierarchy. To finish, I wanted to share a small anecdote that for me captures the essence of this work. At the end of one of our recent group sessions, one of the survivors, I'll call her Zena, was waiting to be picked up to go home. We were just sitting around the table together with our bicultural worker, and I'd just heated my lunch up in the microwave and sat down to eat it. And I noticed that Zena was looking at me with a really worried expression. Given everything these women carry, my mind immediately went to concerns about trauma, family stress, or something difficult happening in her life. I asked our bicultural worker to interpret because I wanted to understand what was wrong and see how I could help. She smiled and said, "Zena wants me to tell you that it's unhealthy to heat your soup in a plastic container, and she's worried about you." Everyone laughed, including Zena, but the moment stayed with me. For so long, these women have been positioned by the world as people to be cared for, rescued, protected, assessed, or treated. Yet in that moment, Zena was not the vulnerable person in the room. She was simply a woman showing care and concern for another human being. To me, that is what strength-based practice looks like. It's not denying suffering, it's creating the conditions where people can reconnect not only with safety and healing, but with their capacity to care, contribute, lead, protect others, and belong. Thank you.
So sexual torture, as we all know, in the context of war, captivity and enslavement, impacts women in profound ways across all elements of their being. I want to begin my discussion of the counselling supports that can complement a group-based support program for women who've experienced sexual torture by describing a framework that informs my counselling work with trauma. This framework was developed as part of my master's dissertation, drawn from literature about women's own reports of what helped their healing after conflict-related sexual torture in the warscape of the Democratic Republic of Congo. The emphasis on women's own knowledge is important here and I think really complements the focus of the group as Ali has just outlined it. I will describe it in relation to providing counselling support for the Yazidi survivor peer support group. Sexual torture and slavery healing is supported by individual counselling, which often draws on Western models and ideas, and that offers confidentiality, which I know has been spoken about earlier as incredibly important. And it's important also to the women in our group. Sometimes it's great to speak to somebody who's not from within the culture. Different things can be said and discussed and examined. So also it offers unconditional positive regard, as we know, and assessment for mental health problems such as post-traumatic stress disorder, depression and anxiety. It aims to reduce symptoms and support ways of telling the trauma story safely. Also, resources from cultural worldview that can be harnessed for healing, such as cultural ethic and human rights, cultural values as admired by the community and or the individual, and aspirational ideals of models fighting oppression from within the community, religion and beliefs or inducing beliefs, foundations to knowledge beliefs, and rituals such as mourning practices, purification practices, and life transition practices. And purification practices have been particularly important for the community that we are working with. And these have been done separate from us within the community to assist people's rejoining the community by with the sanctification of religious leaders. In addition, attention to women's empowerment and community empowerment, which includes understanding and challenging barriers to choices and to access to resources, so that the women themselves have agency, as well as the agency to ask for help and assistance. Focuses for healing that link these areas include cultural ways of healing, cultural practices that are the normal part of the knowledge of the women themselves, or maybe some older things that are held by by parents or by elders. Challenging stigma consequences. Stigma has been spoken about. It's a complex issue that has been addressed to some degree for some of the women within our group, addressed within bicultural means, but there are still elements that are of concern. Developing understand about the hegemonic powers and justifiers that enable sexual torture. So why has this happened? Why has it been allowed to happen? What can we do to stop it? These are the ideas and challenges that are important to women who've experienced these things in their lives and want to be part or have opportunities to be part of agents of change. And part of that, of course, as Ellie's mentioned, is supporting justice seeking. These elements can be incorporated into individual counselling as discussion points, depending on what's raised by women themselves, or perhaps what becomes a curious question of their own interests in relation to these things, or utilised in a group setting. It may be something that the group itself may be interested in pursuing in a conversation, or have somebody with some expert knowledge provide them with that framework from which they can then formulate where they would like to proceed to. And there can arise as points of concern that arise in individual lives, community concerns and commemorations, or triggered by current news and world events. Or they may be scheduled as the focus of counselling or group sessions. Understanding the needs of the individual or of the group members at a particular time on the journey is important to fit these things in if they're the things that match with what is wanted by the group or what is happening for some individuals within the group. In the survivors group, we've incorporated counselling activities, especially those focused on being present in the body and assisting emotion regulation and supporting staying within the window of tolerance into our group activities. So I'll just describe a few of these. Mindfulness, using breathing to notice thoughts and then come back to the breath. Grounding, noticing the feet in contact with the floor, the body in the chair, the hands on the lap. Mindfulness, using the 5 senses to be fully in the present, in the room. It's also been incorporated in some of our activities, our excursions. So nature mindfulness, using the 5 senses within the park to enjoy the new environment fully. These group activities provide transferable experiences that may be practiced by individuals at home and become familiar so that these are resources that can be tapped into to assisting with that empowering potential that the women have and are seeking for themselves to live fully. Visualization, relaxation, noticing calm energy coming into the body with the breath and tension leaving, flowing under the door and forming the clouds before raining down to nurture the earth. The metaphor of the trauma, of the tension, of the stress becoming something that contributes by raining down and nurturing the earth has been well accepted by my individual clients and was, I think, enjoyed by the group when we conducted this activity. So with complementary to the Yazidi women survivors peer support group, individual counselling is available to all group members who want it. Some of the survivors at time experience severe symptoms, and I've been working with them to try to assist the impact of those severe symptoms. What I'm describing is triggers to their torture memories that lead to dissociative collapse or unconsciousness. So this is debilitating because it can happen at any time, inconvenient time. People may be available to assist or they may be not. People may be alone when this happens. So these are difficult things. We are trying to assist women to get the professional support of psychiatrists through the group and through our organisation's starts. But I'm also trying some things in my counselling sessions to assist with this. So I've been using a modified form of EMDR, which some of you may be familiar with. It's a well-supported Western intervention that assists people who've experienced trauma, and it takes the sting out of the trauma memory in the present. That's its aim. But this modified form doesn't require focusing so specifically on the torture and trauma memories, which for many women are very painful and they spend a lot of time trying to avoid. It instead just asks them to touch on that memory, send the memory off in a jar over the horizon, far, far away, and then they are guided through a visualization of walking in the garden, using their 5 senses to smell, to hear the birds, to feel the spray from a fountain on their face, to feel the soft grass under their feet. And then periodically they're asked to go back to that memory, touch on it, throw it away again, and come back to the other more grounding and nervous system regulating description of the garden. The women find this acceptable. They are very happy to repeat these sessions. They feel a lot better at the end of the sessions. And it's a practice form to assist people to stay within their window of tolerance. Of course, more work needs to be done to fully support the women with these symptomatic impacts that they sometimes experience at inconvenient and very stressful times. For sexual torture healing, opportunities for regaining purpose and meaning is the third phase after developing safety and rebuilding relationships of Judith Herman's 1992 model for healing from trauma, which was formulated at the time when we were just starting to think about the complexities and of the impact of trauma and how to work with it. Along with strengths of worldview and culture, and supported by access to individual counselling, the Yazidi Women Survivor Peer Support Group is a model that is really supporting the women who are operating within that group. It's a profound privilege to walk alongside the survivors and contribute to their healing and life development journey. It's a profound privilege to see them develop the skill set to be helping each other and themselves and to be rebuilding their lives in the ways that they want to. Thank you.
Good day, good time, everyone, and thank you very much, Berta, for this opportunity. Appreciating all of the speakers and deeply of the shared experiences. I had a specific question to Janet. I am not a psychologist. I'm actually but I know that our therapists are using EMDR for their concept. These modified forms of EMDR that you were mentioning, is there any document, any paper that we can share with our therapists to learn about that?
Yes, I'd be very happy to do that. I have actually recently written up briefly what I'm doing, but this is drawn from the work of other people who've written more extensively, and I've got some references. I'd be very happy to send them to Berta and for distribution. Yeah.
Yeah, already. I just texted the question that I have. It's for thank you everyone for this great presentation and working also with women survivors. So my question is for Janet and Ali. I'm not sure Ali is here, but how do you support survivors to support them to advocate for themselves and in their city or for in international capacity? And how long does it take? And it's very hard to speak up internationally with the platform, but how do you support them? How do you support your clients with advocacy skills? So I work also on
Yeah,
survivor engagement and livelihood. That's why I'm very much interested on that.
Yeah, thank you for your question. The model that we're using to work with the group, which is the peer survivor support model, which was developed for people who'd experienced modern slavery. The concept of the model is that we train up people who elect to be peer support workers or peer leaders. So we have had some workshops, whole day workshops, and we had it with people who are very familiar with the model and have actually been implementing that model. It was structured in a way where those who wanted to be the peer leaders or thought they might be interested in finding more about it, they came along to the fair, and then we had a session for everybody on the second day where some of the peer leaders practiced some of the skills that they were introduced to. So it was really trying to draw from the people themselves what would be the most important things for making the group work and what might be the best ways for assisting somebody, given that people have their own difficulties and struggles, and what might be some of the limitations and how do they set barriers for themselves. And, so those are the kinds of skills to sort of assist people to be able to support and also able to manage when it's the requests for support are too overwhelming, but able also to form relationships that are slightly different from the friend relationship and be able to navigate that and say, now I'm with you as a friend and now I'm with you as a peer support leader, so that they better control of boundaries and things like that. So a whole lot of things to assist people, and a lot of the ideas came from the women themselves in terms of, what were the best ways for the group to operate, what were the best ways for the cultural ways that are important to incorporate. So that knowledge from the women, so really drawing on what they know and giving them another framework and structure. So we're only partway there in that process. I think that there's still a long way to go, but we're very committed to continuing to support the women, and there might need to be, some more assistance with training and other people coming in to give them some more skills. And in the meantime, the way the group is progressing is they're still receiving quite a lot of support from from the facilitators. And that's Ali, myself, and we have a bicultural facilitator from the community as well, who's just essential, amazing. I can't speak highly enough about her and her role. In terms of international things, some of these things have just landed in our lap. So there has been some actions by various countries, in this case, the recent one in France, where the judiciary there were investigating their own nationals who had committed crimes against humanity and genocide against the community. And they are seeking out people who've been victimised and subjected to enslavement and captivity and sexual torture by these particular people from different places around the world. So they were then able to provide some testimony and contribute to that justice process. This is something that I think is starting in Australia, so we wait to see what will happen in terms of how the law can deal with these kinds of things locally. But I think there's also been some actions in Germany, Sweden, there might be some other countries. You might know more about it, those of you who are from Europe.
Thank you so much. Sorry for the technical problem. So I am Alessandro Righetto. I am a physiotherapist specialized in pelvic floor dysfunctions. And I have one question for the first presenter. Was it Selvi, maybe the first presenter? I don't remember the name.
Donieta.
Donieta. And I was just, and I have one consideration then and one question. So I am very happy to know that there are some organizations that work with physiotherapists. It is absolutely relevant. Of course, I am a physiotherapist, so I say this, of course, to work the physical aspect. It activates immune response, physical activity. It regulates sympathetic and parasympathetic activity. It boosts confidence. So it's pivotal in this setting. And my question was, she said that they work with physiotherapists as well. I was wondering, do they do specific work related to violence, or do they do, to put it in a simple way, let's say general physiotherapy? Thank you so much.
Faleminderit shumë për pyetjen, Alessandro. Faktikisht organizata jonë ka fillu vite më parë duke marrë parasysh që në një pikë të trajtimit, pasi që janë marrë seancat psikologjike, është dhënë mbështetja qoftë edhe ajo mjekësore kurdo që ka pasur nevojë, e kemi pa që një formë e traumës po ruhet edhe në trup. Po e mban taman trupi atë dhimbje dhe tu pas parasysh që këta janë shumë të ndjeshëm ndaj prekjeve, ku ti ndoshta edhe nuk mundesh me ofru atë mbështetjen në kuptimin emocional, qoftë me një prekje të dorës apo me një përgdhelje të vogël tek krahu për arsye të cilat vetë se i dim në konceptin e traumës. Atëherë sigurisht pa marrë lejen e tyre. Atëherë na e kemi pa që është e nevojshme që atë traumë e cila po qëndron brenda trupit me u përpunu edhe ajo formë traumë, sepse na po e përpunojmë aspektin psikologjik përmes qasjeve të ndryshme të cilat i kanë terapistët brenda KRCT-s. Atëherë kemi pa që është e rëndësishme mu përpunu edhe ajo formë. Kemi pa që shumë prej dhimbjeve të cilat ata i kanë edhe që i shprehin, qofshin ato dhimbje të qafës, qofshin ato dhimbje të shpindës, qofshin ato dhimbje të duarve, të këmbëve, vijnë pikërisht si pasojë, nuk ka ndonjë arsye detyrimisht organike, po vijnë si pasojë e rujtjes së traumës në trup. Për këtë arsye, ne kemi rekrutuar fizioterapeut në vende të ndryshme, në qytete të ndryshme, duke marrë parasysh që të mbijetuarit janë në vende të ndryshme në Kosovë. Atëherë në disa lokacione kemi rekrutu fizioterapist edhe ata aty i pranojnë shërbimet për të cilat kanë nevojë. Domethënë, në qoftë se jo detyrimisht është një lloj specifik i fizioterapisë i cili aplikohet. Mirë po, aplikohen ushtrime fizioterapeutike të cilat janë të përshtatshme për secilin individ në bazë të kërkesave të individëve, në bazë të vendit për shembull ku mundet me qenë dhimbja apo tensioni muskular. Shpresoj që ju përgjigja pyetjes tonë.
Greetings from Berlin, from Centrum Überleben, and it was so I'm working in a project for women who was victims of the sexual violence and are also refugees, and it was very interesting for me to hearing about post-traumatic isolation and peer support, because what we actually struggle in our project is to step back from our expert roles, which we are aware of, and give more space for our clients. It's somehow not working as we would like to. They are very of taking parts on a group activity, of exchanging their experience, and me and my colleagues are really struggling to put them into the group or to enable them to stay connected to each other, which is very painful also. And I'm asking myself, of course, is it the concept of the healing? Because also some clients have these expectations and telling us that, okay, you are here to heal us. And so we are actually not meeting each other in the right place here about these expectations. And I'm wondering, like, what are your hints to get out of this post-traumatic isolation and to have these groups and peer support more visual, more existing?
I'm not a panelist, but also I used to be peer support specialist myself in California, San Diego. So one of the things which we did was like to play soccer for women. If they want to go hiking, they can go and do hiking. So some kind of activities. It makes it easier for them to get involved. So also not necessarily like from a clinical perspective, but also like being a friend and going to some places, some interests that they have in common. That creates also, it facilitates to be more connected and not to see like, oh, clinically I'm not okay, but something very natural that helps. And for me, I used to play soccer with our clients in San Diego. So that became easy, like to connect with them and to open up and also to organize. So yeah, there are different ways that I did that kind of non-clinical healing. We call it like soccer healing, something like that. So it's very simple.
Thanks for it. Actually, we have also this kind of activities in our project. So me and myself, I'm doing a sewing group. So when we sew or change our clothes and so on, but still it somehow doesn't catch up with for a long term with the clients. Somehow the step from doing this kind of all day activities or going for an excursion and so on, or to the cinema whatsoever, it's not translating into speaking about the trauma. So like, or maybe they shouldn't speak about the trauma. This is the point. Yeah. But thanks a lot for
and also there is another one program called Baking Connection. Like if they are women baking and they talk about informal way of talking about the trauma and healing, and especially if they're not from the same place, sometimes that might be a challenge, because if there is no trust, that's hard to open up, but it will take time.